Howdy doody buckaroonies, and welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Cameron. I don't know about you guys, but rather than your normal angel and devil on the shoulder of, oh, do it, no, don't, I kind of have this internal idiot redneck who encourages me to pursue any and every weird idea when it comes to sound design that I get in my head, and usually says something to the effect of, oh yeah, we gonna get a So today, I have questions that just need answers, and if I don't do this, it's going to drive me absolutely crazy. One of my favorite sound design tricks is to use a convolution reverb and use something unconventional as an impulse response, because I think this is a really fun way to get some very unique results very quickly for just about anything. The other night, I was up reading about algorithmic reverb design, and in this article or whatever it was, they talked about utilizing noise in a convolution reverb and then changing the noise with things like filters or EQs to simulate different environments and whatever, just to kind of use as a blank template. Now, after reading that, my little inner redneck idiot had all the little tiny gears of my brain turning, and I just wanted to know, what if we use noise as an impulse response, but added just a bunch of effects and stuff to it and just tried it out and see what happens? With that being said, full disclosure, I have not even tried this yet, so I figured rather than waste a bunch of time, I might as well film the process and record the results, because I think this is kind of a fun experiment, and it's interesting to maybe run the risk of getting a pile of completely unusable garbage, but I suppose that's half the fun. If you end up trying this out for yourself and come up with something cool, feel free to tag me and share it to me on social media or send it to me in my Discord, because I'm always curious to hear what you guys come up with. And for more sound design tips and whatever I feel like doing that day, be sure to subscribe to the channel down below. Before we get into the video today, if you don't have a convolution reverb that allows you to load in your own impulse responses, you can check out Convology XT, which is linked down in the description below. It's absolutely free and allows you to load in whatever files you want, so you can use that to follow along. Okay, so here we are in Bitwig, and I've got a couple things open. I've got a Falcon up here, which is going to be our noise generator machine. I have an audio track here to sample that noise to, so we can shape it to shape the decay, and then another Falcon here down at the bottom. This is what we're going to use as the instrument of, I don't know, some synth sounds or samples or something, just to try this out and see the results we get. In order to establish a baseline, let's just do some white noise, and let's grab an EQ, and just do a digital EQ, here we go, and low pass this and try this out just to make sure everything works. So the thing here is that we should get a very dark reverb out of this. Okay, so here's the final result, sounds like this. And we're gonna load this into the other Falcon with the impulse response loader and just try this out to make sure this whole idea works. Then we're gonna go crazy with a bunch of effects and see what happens. Okay, so in our instrument, let's go here and grab an analog. We're just gonna use a saw wave just to see how this sounds. Let's go to effects, and in our effects, we can find under the reverb, IR verb here. We'll go to our files in our session, find this, cool, drag that bad boy on in here. So we should be able to play just a small blip of a saw and hear just the low end of that because this reverb is very dark. Let's try it out and see if our theory is correct. Cool. So if we do 100% wet with no dry and turn this into more of a pad sound, I wonder, let's add some stereo width to it as well. Let's see what this sounds like. I'm not mad at that. Okay, so I think we're on the right track. Now let's take this up a notch by experimenting with some different noises and a bunch of different effects. Within Falcon here, we have a bunch of different noise types. So let's try, I guess, maybe like the dust or something here. So I've already got a MIDI note, and let's maybe just adjust this so we can get a really long reverb. I guess we'll just make this like 4-5 bars, something like that, I guess. I don't really know. And we can change the noise type and start adding some effects. Let's see what we could get here. Let's open this up and try dust. Get rid of the EQ. Make it stereo. Okay, now let's go into our effects here and just add a bunch of stuff to make some weird noise. Okay, and we're back. I've got 4 different noises here. Let's take a listen to each of these, and then I guess we're gonna load them up and see what we get. So they're all pretty kooky and weird, but I have a feeling these are going to give some really interesting results. So we're going to try this, I guess, with like a saw wave, maybe a piano. I don't really know. We're just going to try some different sounds and see what we get out of it. To shape these, I'm just going to go ahead and reverse them, I guess, just to make sure we have all the noise. Because at the beginning, it wasn't doing all the noise for some reason. So we're just going to take that and shape these like this. Cool. And then we will highlight all of these and bounce them. That way we get all of these. And if you want these files to try out for yourself, you can join my Discord and I will post them in there. Okay, back in our instrument Falcon here, let's go to this. So we have our dark reverb here, which is just on a saw wave, which actually sounds kind of nice. Let's try this. I wonder what this is gonna do. Interesting, you can definitely hear some of the modulation there. Let's try one more. Actually, I'm probably most curious about that one. Let's try that one. Get rid of any damping. Give it a go. Huh. It's not as drastic as I thought it would be, but there is a difference in the tone. So let's try and build on this for a minute and see if we get something cool out of it. Okay, so I've cooked up something a little more interesting here, and I think we're kind of steering in the right direction for this whole thing. I've loaded in a vocal sample, and then I've got 2 of the different impulse responses here. So I've got one that's a bit darker. This is 5. And then I've got one that's a little bit brighter, I guess, which is 3. And that has more of that modulation and stuff to it. So I'm going to add some width to both of these. And then I think we're maybe going to try adding just a super, super subtle chorus here to the beginning for just a little bit of stereo information to this whole thing. Mix it in just a bit. And this actually creates a pretty cool sound that almost has a very atmospheric quality to it. So I think that's actually kind of interesting, and I'm gonna tweak with this whole idea for a minute and see if we can get something a bit more suitable for an actual production. So I'll see you back momentarily. Okay, and we're back. So I've set up a little arrangement here, and I'm actually pretty happy with the results. So I wanted to show you kind of the final sounds, and then just do kind of a little improv performance thing here, just to show everything in context, because I think it's pretty neat. The first thing here is the Reason Rack plugin. So what I did is grab Maelstrom here and found this chip arpeggio, and then I loaded in one of the impulse responses here into RV7000, which allows you to load in your own impulse responsey things. So if we bypass that and take a listen to just this instrument, it sounds like this, which is like cool, but you know, maybe a little cheesy for what I was going for. So once we enable this and I have it mixed in 100% wet, it sounds like this. Which takes on kind of a cool, washed out, almost sinister undertone to it. So that was pretty neat. The second instrument is Falcon. The second instrument here is just a Falcon. I've got an analog and another analog. So this is a square tuned up a fifth. This is a saw. There's some stereo stuff on both. I've got a filter here, which is MPE responsive. So I can actually blend in that fifth layer and open up this filter on my MPE controller. In terms of the effects, there's not anything too crazy. I've got audio bounce 2, which is this sound, which is just kind of a phasery noise, a diode clipper, and a studio limiter. Without the impulse response, the patch sounds like this. which is pretty basic and not that exciting. But once we enable the impulse response here, I've got this 100% wet, wide, and time at 100%. It sounds like this. With a nice long decay on it, and I think it's cool because it has that kind of phasery, I don't know, modulated movement to it, but without actually having like a phaser on it, which is kind of a unique effect. I'm not sure why things aren't as wide. I think the noise is actually mono, which might be what the deal's there. But anyways, let's give this a play and have a little kind of improvised jam session over this loop, and that probably does it. So I think that was kind of a fun little experiment. I think it would be hard to reliably produce useful results, but I think it's kind of fun to not exactly know what you're going to get after you try this process. So I would be curious to try it out maybe with some other enharmonic things that are maybe just more random. I think certain types of noise tend to sound a bit bland, so it just kind of seems more trial and error, at least to me at the moment. But I think this was a fun process, and I think this was a cool little thing to try that made some sounds really interesting very easily. Again, just a little bit of trial and error involved, so you may get a bit of a mixed bag, but I think it's worth trying. So if you come up with something cool, be sure to share that with me. I'd love to hear what you come up with. And I think this, if all else, was just kind of a fun little experiment. So I think that wraps everything up for this video. As always, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon.